On the show today, all things Dallas Cowboys training camp, because it is the first day of Cowboys practice in Oxnard. We'll talk about how realistic are their Super Bowl chances. They mentioned that word quite a bit over the course of yesterday's press conference with Jerry Jones and Steven and Brian Schottenheimer, both them as well as the media. There were several questions that were directed in that sense.
Some of those were leading
as
questions.
Well. Yes,
so.
yes. Listen, there was purpose to a lot of what went on yesterday, but there is a purpose to what they're trying to accomplish. How realistic are those chances that they can accomplish what they have set out to do? We'll give you some players to keep an eye out for in these first couple of practices, because it's a moving target throughout the course of practice, throughout the course of camp. These first few days, it's a lot of hats and shells. We're not, maybe they'll thud up a little bit today. That's about all you're going to see at maximum. It may not even go that far today. It's going to be a few days before they throw the full pads on. So some of the things that you're watching for today are different from what you'd be looking for on maybe Monday or Tuesday of next week. So we'll get into a little bit of that. Dak Prescott turns 33 today, so we will talk about the Cowboys quarterback and all that comes for him. We'll have Michelle kind of gallivant her way through Cowboys fans in the middle block of the show and introduce ourselves to some of the fans that are anxiously waiting to walk through the gates here in a little bit. But we do need to start the show.
Can I give you an analogy first?
Sure.
Oh, no.
Matt Howerton hits the desk harder than they will hit each other today.
Fair. Now, Matt Howerton hits the desk pretty hard, so that's...
I was going to say, Matt Howerton and J.J.
Accurate.
Watt. Right kind of impact.
Yes, they will stair step their way in. They will ramp up in practice, which, by the way, is a good thing. Take your time. Nobody needs to be getting hurt. These guys know how to play football.
Yeah.
You need to get into a rhythm together. There are things that do need to be accomplished over the course of the next month and a half before they play their first game. But the most important thing that you want to accomplish between now and September 13th is don't get anybody hurt, and that is easier said than done. There was a lot said yesterday in the introductory press conference. We talked about this before the press conference yesterday throughout the body of the show, and if we can go ahead and start in with SOT 0, because the entire premise, at least from us, our kind of directive, if you will, to Jerry Jones was, hey, just stick with the no drama thing, please. Just let it be about football. And he was asked about just how placid, how docile the Cowboys offseason was.
He did finish that up with, maybe I will start things up before camp is over. But to your point, Mike, for the majority of it, he did acknowledge that they hadn't had too many off-season, off-the-field storylines. His perspective on whether or not it makes an iota of a difference,
yes.
Whether we block the guy or come off our tackle. Like, that to me is interesting because that shows you a little bit of his perspective when it comes to how he manages what this team does in the headlines off the field versus what goes on behind closed doors. Shotty was asked something along those same lines of like, you guys say it's been a quiet off season, but we've been doing a ton behind the scenes. And maybe it hasn't been as much in terms of drama and off-season, off-the-field storylines, but don't let that fool you into thinking we haven't been super, super active pretty much on the football side of things and doing stuff behind closed doors. For Jerry to say, I don't think it makes a difference, okay, that's his perspective. If this season does ultimately result in some sort of different product on the field, that would be an instance where, okay, actions are speaking louder than the owner's words.
Yeah. Hey, listen, we've heard from former Cowboys players who have left the organization that have talked about
the regular
impact.
Topic,
yes, the impact that is had upon the locker room, upon individual players, by all of the hoopla that surrounds this team. Yes, it has an impact. It makes more than an iota of impact. Now, you still do have to go make the block. You still do have to go make the tackle. But if you're constantly feeling distracted by something the owner did or something the owner said, like it does matter. It does distract you in some form or fashion when you should be laser focused on the game plan, the technique, whatever it is that you're working on in practice. And they have given these players an opportunity this year to live a little bit in what it's like to be a member of most, anyway, of the other 31 teams in this league. It might actually work. Worth a shot.
No, I know.
And maybe he did have some epiphany moment over the course of this offseason. He goes, you know what? I've tried everything else. What if I just try shutting up? Maybe that will work. Maybe that's the elixir for my football franchise.
Can I throw an alternative out there? And
Sure.
maybe a reality is that the World Cup stole a little bit of the time that Jerry would have devoted to the
please.
spotlight. No, I'm serious. Like, he didn't even have control of his own stadium for a while there. He popped up right at the end as semifinals came back around. But I'm not suggesting, like, I feel like at that moment, to put his own building on display was more important than injecting himself into the conversation. So he stepped out for a month. I don't even think it was necessarily intentional. I think it was just how the flow of things went. And instead,
It was a well-timed month that kind of fit right between
That's all I'm saying.
mini camp and training camp.
That's all I'm saying. It's just the nice balance of it. It's like he is benefiting from the spotlight not showing him as much. Now, and granted, he had the spotlight on him yesterday, and it took him a while to kind of get the gumption up to say this is a Super Bowl season. But that is part of what this team is right now. Like, he did not come out fire and brimstone until Schotty brought the energy and until, obviously, Dak brought the energy with the T-shirt. Like, the fact that all of these changes and all of these communications are happening not necessarily with Jerry as the forefront, but where Jerry doesn't necessarily have to be involved all the time, I think is a huge step for this franchise to get the kind of camaraderie that they were trying to build on the roster so it can have meaningful impact on the field in and of itself.
To that end, you mentioned the T-shirt. Jerry Jones did talk about, if we can pull up SOT 2, he did talk about the fact that Dak Prescott, whether it was an intentional statement or not, I highly doubt that it was not. He may try to deflect later this week. It was just a T-shirt. Dak Prescott is a smarter man than that. He does not do these things by accident. This was definitely intentional. And Jerry Jones spoke to what it says that Dak has the confidence necessary to make that kind of move. I find it interesting that he actually acknowledged that, hey, you guys don't think that we are a Super Bowl caliber team. And I think most people probably don't. I think most of the media probably
Edwarder certainly doesn't.
Again, take his shots.
Why you guys got to keep on swinging on Werder, man? Dude's never going to come on the show again.
No, it was just the opening opinion that we had.
I adore Edwarder. It's just funny, yeah.
That's all it is.
And please come back.
You know what? If anyone knows what they're talking about, it is Edwarder. So
100%.
He can have any opinion he wants, and there's going to be merit to it. Sorry, continue, Mike.
Listen, are they... Where do we think they actually would stack up in a reasonable power ranking? Are they 14? Somewhere in that.
You're going to make me pull up the roster of teams just so I can try and figure it out myself.
I think there is genuinely no earthly idea where they stack up right now, because
that's also true,
you have no clue how this defense is going to turn out this year. And I remember being here last season and during training camp being like, this offense, it's going to be good. I mean, you getting your first look really at both CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens on the field together. Some of the plays that they made during training camp last year, you're like, oh my God. They had a pretty, the offensive line, there was carryover and consistency there. So you felt pretty good about that. We didn't know Javonte Williams was going to have the career year he did, but like offensively, you left camp thinking, yeah. Defensively, you didn't need to leave camp to think, oh God, like what are we running out there? And Andrew, we kind of talked about this yesterday. That's not just on Matt Eberflus. That was on the guys that they had available to use on the defensive side of the ball last year. I think we have literally no idea what to expect legitimately from this defense because we don't know how well the scheme is going to be implemented. We don't know how Christian Parker is going to call a defense. All indications would suggest that he's a super intense guy. The players have really kind of taken to him. He's been preparing for this moment for long before the moment came. Everything you've heard about him, yes. Green flags all over the place.
Right.
But will that translate in year one? I mean, Jerry said yesterday they kind of did this soft rebuild overhaul when they brought in Jimmy Johnson in his first year and what they won one game. So there's just, I think to ask that question is, what basically 50%, maybe 60% if you want to throw in the highest paid kicker in the league and the special teams unit can do. About 60% of what you're going to get from this team. There's a big chunk of it where it's all question marks at this point, I think.
And
mostly question marks.
Yeah, and to that end, I just pulled up just one random power ranking. The one that popped up for me was Fox Sports. They had him at 19.
Interesting.
Behind the Carolina Panthers and the Minnesota Vikings,
behind
18
the Vikings.
and 17.
They didn't even know who their quarterback is.
Behind the Packers at 16, Lions at 15. Again, this is just one writer's opinion.
No, sure.
What is the ESPN one that you found showing?
ESPN has them at 14.
Okay.
And they're 3 spots above the Bears.
Well, and
so
how many?
See 14
I wonder.
Makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
I wonder if we went back. I don't know if this is attainable right now, but if we went back and saw how many people projected the Seattle Seahawks to be the number 1 team in 2025,
right.
Or even the Patriots. I don't think they were ranked that high, or at least shouldn't have been going into the season. So,
right.
Yeah, I mean, those rankings obviously in July mean only so much, but it's Mike, you opened the show with Jerry relatively okay with this being a quiet off season, but at the same time during that press conference he also went on to say, hey, we're not necessarily done making moves this off season, and I wouldn't be surprised if they spend these next, I would say maybe 1, 2, 2.5, 3 weeks getting a better idea of what this defense actually looks like once the pads come on. And from there, they're able to more granularly identify the holes, probably on the defensive side of the ball, potentially maybe on the offensive line. But if they're able to get a better idea of, hey, maybe our rookie nickel is going to be okay in the secondary, so we have a more dire need at linebacker or up front. And at that point, once they have a better idea of where they're lacking a little bit, they make a move that would kind of quote unquote stir up this offseason, or at least make more attention-grabbing headlines.
Just to close the loop real quick, because I did go back and check the 2025. Yeah, okay, so we both did the same thing. NFL.com.
Still on ranking. Sorry.
Oh, you went NFL.com this time? Okay.
Where'd you go?
ESPN this time.
Okay, cool.
It's just what popped up.
Yeah. NFL.com had the Seahawks ranked 19th heading into Week 1.
ESPN had them 17th, 1 spot ahead of the 18th ranked Dallas Cowboys before they went and won the Super Bowl. So preseason power rankings mean precisely nothing. What matters is the work that is put in over the course of this next month and a half leading into the season, and then obviously the results that you put on the field through the season. I think there is potential for this team to be quite good. It does hinge, obviously, on the defense, but I don't think that Jerry Jones was wrong yesterday to say that the offense should be at least a little bit better this year than they were last year. As difficult to bar as that is to clear, they do have everybody back. Why shouldn't you be able to build upon the success you had last year, however difficult it may be? So I do think that this is a team that has potential. Now, does that mean you're in the top 8? If you're in the top 8, you're good enough.
Yeah.
If you're in the top 8, you're good enough. That's now, Jerry's proverbial you're around the rim.
Sure, but last year it was very clear there were 2 really good teams in the NFC, and they were a tier above everybody else.
No doubt.
It was Seattle and LA. So it depends on the year, right?
Yes.
Like that is part of this. But ultimately, like when we were talking about the offense and how it functions, the real reason why we're giving them a shot is because they kept George Pickens around. And they did it through means other than just giving him a contract that he probably deserved based off of his performance last year. But it took some connection.
Shoddy's mark on this organization is not insignificant.
Yeah.
He understands people. He knows how to connect with these guys.
Yep.
There's inherent value to the way that he comports himself and just the way that he leads this group. Does that equate to wins this season? We'll see.
That's about the only thing missing off the ledger, though.
It's it.
Like
that's it.
Because he was the
only
right
thing that matters.
Right.
But that is the only thing left that we haven't seen.
But
proven.
I'll say that, to the question on that front. again, he was dealt with a really difficult hand last year in a multitude of situations. You're talking roster overhaul right before the season began. You're talking, obviously, everything that happened around Marshawn Nealon and keeping the locker room together in a very difficult time. He was the right man for that roster at the right time. And the question just boils down to, we see his influence on the offense. The thing that everyone always, I'll give you a good example. Jaden Daniels, when he first came into the league, tore the league up because he was an unknown quantity, and it took time for people to adapt to him. He got injured a little bit. That affected him, but his year 2 was nowhere near what year 1 looked like it was promising. The question will be, as much as Schottenheimer is this galvanizing force behind the scenes and can talk the talk and walk the walk to some degree, the team has to perform at a level with which Cowboys fans want. And now that there is tape on this offense, how does the league adjust? How do they combat what they saw last year, knowing that they're going to trot out George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb for a lot of the same looks and talent on talent? You can call plays and call defenses all you want. If the players make the plays, it doesn't matter. Like, that's mostly how the league functions.
You can only double team so many people.
Exactly.
Too. Like, at some point,
and you only have so many. Right, you only have so many corners that can go one-on-one with those guys and actually make the play. I do wonder how much of an influence Shoddy either had with his communication or just his overall presence on the fact that this was a more drama-free offseason for the Cowboys. And I'm not saying that Shoddy went to Jerry and was like, hey, let's tamper it down. Like, no. But at the same time, I do wonder if just the way that he, as you said, I think you said comports, not sure I've ever heard that word before, but the way that he carries himself, and no, I loved it. I'm here for Jeopardy. But because I'm learning things that I would never know.
I'm here to teach.
But I really do wonder if just the overarching, it's not even so much like what he said or how he carries himself, but this culture idea that Shoddy's really kind of led with from day one. How much of that had an influence on, let's actually stick to football. Let's be, I think Shoddy's one of the most high character individuals probably around the league. And I just feel like that kind of infiltrates every other part of this organization, or at least it has in year 1.5, I guess now, under him. For Jerry to unsolicited give the credit to him, especially with a topic as attention grabbing as this George Pickens situation, I felt like that spoke volumes as to how Jerry views his head coach. It's interesting. And to your point, I mean, wins are the only thing that matter. He has, I think he has to prove it this year, but at the same time, like, on the offensive side of the ball last year, the side that he was more tapped into, they did perform. There were games where you're like, this offense is giving me a little bit to question. Like, I think Carolina stands out to me. I remember they stalled late in that game, or maybe it was early, but there were times where the offense last season didn't perform up to what we would expect. But for the most part, I mean, Shoddy was relying heavily on a former head coach to run his defense and a roster on the defensive side of the ball that was making it challenging. So it will be, I think there's a better chance for him to rack up some of those wins if everything we've heard about Christian Parker and this defense and some of the moves they've made actually do come to fruition this year.
It is interesting that we're talking about a Jerry Jones that willingly and unprompted gave credit to his head coach. Maybe speaks at least a little bit to the evolution of Jerry Jones, because rather famously he couldn't share credit with a head coach once upon a time, and that sent everying asunder.
Who won him a Super Bowl?
Yeah, like that's
a Super Bowl. 2.
Yeah,
technically 3.
So hey, growth.
Hey, a documentary came out last year, so he's learning too.
Apparently, he is, however, still Jerry Jones. Still the gambler, still the wildcatter. He is who he is. And if we can call up SOT 5, he had a fascinating back and forth with the...
this is a journey.
Is this now technically ESPN reporter Jane Slater? I think technically that's how we have to categorize her. NFL Network has kind of ceased to exist. But a legitimately fascinating back and forth relative to Max Crosby.
I love the tap dance.
he tight-roped that line, and I don't think he said anything that is actually actionable by the league, that he would be fined or whatever for actually tampering. But he did walk the line. And listen, he was asked the question directly about the player. That is on some level out of his control. And all he said was, basically the premise here was we stayed engaged with trying to make that happen, even after things blew up with the Ravens, and expressed surprise that landed the way that it did, that finished the way that it did, because everybody knew what his injury status was. The Cowboys have been involved. Their doctors have been oftentimes the ones that are sought out by players around the league to do these kinds of procedures. So a lot of times they have information that not everybody around the league necessarily has, but a lot of that information is also shared broad and wide throughout, front office circles, if you will.
And just to keep people on the same page where Crosby was concerned, the Ravens backed out due to an injury concern.
Right.
Like he was not recovering from, or the physical or MRI that he got did not match up with the recovery timeline that they thought he was on. So they backed out, citing that as the rationale. Not that he wasn't a great player with high assets. Like that, there's still a reason to go get him. It's just that timeline spooked the Ravens and they backed out. That's
and
the
it
rationale.
seemed like, anyway, if we can call up SOT 6 here real quick, because now we are getting a little bit up against it time-wise. They are, whether it's relative to Max Crosby, which it certainly didn't sound like Jerry Jones was closing the book on that. He, made it clear, hey, this dude's a Raider, and he's happy as a Raider. But yeah, there was kind of some subtext of for now to all of that. But he did speak to their willingness to make a move because of the belief they have in the talent on this roster right now. Listen, they are fired up. Now, a lot of that is also marketing, They are trying to, as much as they are trying to communicate to the media just how they feel about their team, they're also communicating to the fan base, hey, come on, buy in, come out to practice. Like they're doing all of those things too. But it does seem clear they believe. Now, put your money where your mouth is. Go make that trade you're claiming you're willing to make, provided it comes along. And obviously there's always a need for a trade partner for a trade to happen. But let's see.
I was going to say, Michelle, he clarified several times in there, it's like, this depends on how the team looks to us and how they perform.
Correct. And I genuinely think that comes from a place of, he said, I've never seen this team play together with pads on. And they haven't. I mean, think about all the new names they brought in on the defensive side of the ball that are expected to have bigger roles. You look at the fact that, what I go back to is when they made the trade for Quinnen Williams in the middle of the year last year, he did that with almost this same sort of attitude of like, I think we're almost there. Like, I'm doing what I can to try to fortify this defense because I do feel like we're close. Okay. Some of those losses towards the end of the season after they got in Quinnen, I felt like you saw the frustration like seeping through his face and his skin. Like he was I felt like he was trying and he was more frustrated that he was trying and they weren't getting the results, that I do feel like he sees that the window is closing. Dak is 33 years old today. He's the 5th oldest quarterback in the NFL. This window is not going to be open forever. Their backup quarterbacks are Joe Milton and Sam Howell right now. Okay. I think he feels this sense of urgency. I asked him yesterday, do you feel the pressure to win this year? And he flat out said, yes, I do. For all the obvious reasons. And 30 years of a Super Bowl drought is probably a big part of that. But I think he wants to win another for Dak, for Shotty, for the fans, for himself. The realistic possibility of that happening is with the quarterback he currently has starting, but with a defense who can actually carry their own weight on that side of the ball. So I do think that's where this stems from is, look, if we're not fully there right now with the 11 guys we can start and then a little bit of depth to, as I said, fortify this defense, I think he's willing to make that trade or willing to make a significant move, as he said, for future, because he sees potential now.
I remember early, I think it was Jerry on Cam Newton's show, making the bluster about the big trade that was about to hit, and then the next day all of a sudden it pops that they trade for Logan Wilson. You're going, that's the trade?
Logan Wilson.
And there was a 4-hour span where it was like that was the name that Jerry was going to pomp and circumstance
was
about.
It Stephen A, Andrew? What show was
it might have
that?
been Stephen A's show, but
I think
Cam Newton was on there.
Texas Live.
Yes,
Oh,
it was
that's
at Texas Live. So I was giving Cam too much credit. Either way, like that dynamic was a fascinating one to go to. But the difference is now Jerry has set the bar. Now it's like, hey man, I'll go out and get. He didn't physically say this, but he all but did say, hey, Max Crosby's out there. I wouldn't mind going and get him. Well, okay, you know what I mean. We'll see if that happens.
Yeah. One more soundbite to hit from yesterday. It comes from Brian Schottenheimer because there is a lot of buzz about Christian Parker, and I think for good reason. He comes very highly advertised, and Brian Schottenheimer, behind closed doors throughout this offseason, has seen already the fruits of that labor. We're very intrigued.
I think Malik Hooker describing him as a breath of fresh air said all we need to know. I think there's been a lot of scrutiny and pressure on that side of the ball. They know they haven't lived up to it. They know they couldn't even communicate on the field last year. I think him coming in is kind of that clean slate, and having a guy who is that intense and cares that much and knows clearly as much as he does, like that, I think is, if anything, it's a change. Whether it works or not, still be determined. But I think the players are super happy that they at least took a swing, you know?
Yes.